Ba-da-ba.
Dad
You
would
guys are
want you to
such
choose-
Welcome to The Second Wall, a binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small movements. This time we are discussing the 2017 series Your Lie in April. It can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch episodes 7 through 9 and join Drew and I in the lobby to discuss the show afterwards.
Your Lie in April.
Yes.
So the first episode here was the male pianist, right?
Yes.
The competing male pianist.
Yes.
And then
Sorry, I hear pianist. Because that one thing from Whose Line Is It Anyways? I can say, yes, it's a family show, but she is a pianist. I can say this as much as I want. Pianist, pianist, pianist. Male pianist on top of it.
So what we're saying is by the end of the episode, Isa, the competing pianist, the opposition, had completely turned around and became allies with Kousei, cementing Your Lie in April as the greatest shonen anime of all time.
Right after the first episode of the tournament arc.
His piano no jutsu is so good. He hadn't even played yet, and he's already converting fools.
Yep.
I think, honestly, though, structurally, I have to talk about these 3 episodes together to start.
Yeah.
I really like how they visited each of the characters.
Mm.
So we have Isa, Igawa, and Kousei. And each episode was about them, filled out backstories for each of these characters. Sure, they involved Kousei in some form or another.
Yeah.
Like, definitely your, like, anime orbiters.
Mm.
But it was so nice to be able to get the emotional beats and drive and motivations of these characters.
Mm.
And why they're there and why they chose to play in this competition, especially with Kousei on the bill.
Yes.
And then having each episode framed around each character. It was just so structurally satisfying.
Yeah, I found that, like, just the 3 episode chunks that we do this in actually just seem to have these right beats. It's like the right bit, and you just kind of leave on just a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of each one.
A little bit. This one had me screaming like I wish I could watch number 10.
Yes, but in general, there's been something that makes you want to keep watching,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. These episodes are, because it's just the tournament arc, they're very easy to combine together
Mm-hmm.
when talking about them. I think one of the big things is, like, Kousei didn't know it. He didn't understand. Obviously, he's going through hella trauma,
Mm-hmm.
as we see very clearly. Someone gets CPS involved.
Mm.
And even though, like, it almost gave the idea that he didn't necessarily hear the music then either, or understand the impacts that it can have. Right? Because you get these other kids that are just inspired just by watching him because he gave that great of a performance, and he doesn't even know their names. I think Igawa says it's like, not that he forgot us, he honestly just didn't know us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which
And
is
that it was such a great line. It was so apt too. Like, it was perfectly placed.
Yeah. In seeing the passion that's inspired in the two of them in different ways. So we had Isa I wrote down his other name. Takashi. We have him like turning down like this invitational tournament in Germany, which they've talked about those European tours several times in
Yeah,
the show at this point.
as if they're like big stuff.
Yeah. So him turning that down because it's more important for him to be on stage with Kousei
Mm.
and prove himself to him. And then Igawa, like almost giving up on music herself is almost how they describe it.
Mhm.
It's like she just didn't have that same passion until then sees that Kousei's there again and just immediately flips around. There's a lot of power there. And it's nice to see him, Kousei, interacting with the two of them while listening to the performances and starting to actually understand that worth. And maybe he did actually have some impact here because he couldn't do that before. I thought it was just a really great moment.
Yeah, and there's some like slight tales on some of the threads of like being more than just someone who plays the piano from earlier on in this series, right?
Yeah.
Like having those ripples of just his existence, like there being reason to it. One of the things that the 3 episodes finally starts to express to us Kousei's like true isolation and how he actually feels.
Yeah.
Because like up until now, you knew that he was kind of lonely and kind of detached. We didn't know to what level.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels like they just wrote him so well compared to like this traumatic abusive childhood that he had and like where he ended up like only 2 years later, is it?
Yeah.
It's weird because like the animation makes it seem like it was 10 years ago. But I guess technically they are just in middle school?
Yeah.
Junior high? I'm not sure what they call it.
Yes. From the little bit of Japanese lessons I've been seeing, I've seen both used interchangeably.
Yeah, it probably just reflects like where the translator is located.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's nice seeing that extra context. I mean, sad seeing that extra context around his isolation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's done well, and it's just such a weight put on him.
It was very weird to see such tasteless events be approached in such a tasteful manner.
Mm-hmm. That is a very good way to put it.
Yeah. And it's just really nice to have that additional context, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. It's interesting because we do get a little bit more about his mother outside of her being abusive as well. Apparently, like the other teachers are talking about, like she's respected, like she is like a top tier pianist herself. I think they said that a couple times as well.
I think a lot of that really reinforces what I was thinking about her relationship to Kousei. As she got more sick, she started projecting more upon him to achieve the things that she could not.
Yeah. It explores this well. Like, again, obviously not making it right in any way, shape, or form, but I think with the little bits we've gotten, we can at least see her motivation. And it's. I think there's more with Kousei and the interaction with his mother there too. It's like he clearly doesn't stand up for himself. We see that when he's a kid too. Right?
Mm.
We kind of get that with his interactions with his friends as well, with Tsubaki being the one to push him
Mm.
to do things such as a kid. And how devastating it is to be like the first time, what we see is the first time actually standing up to his mother. Like being the last word you say is like, just die already.
Yeah.
Like, that's rough.
Well, especially like there's a lot of like built up emotional state there too, right?
Mhm.
Because talking as Kousei overall, I still think there was a lot of feeling from when his mother was a good person,
Yeah.
like the vibrant, full of life image that we saw briefly that
Yeah.
one time. And then the child's drive to save his mom or make her healthy by doing anything that he can, including like things that would technically not achieve that goal,
Yeah.
like winning competition after competition.
Yeah.
And all the while being physically abused while doing so. And then eventually, like, the one time you stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's knowing that really kind of shines a light on why Kousei is so like easy to push around now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It also kind of kind of makes you feel bad considering like anytime anyone wants to make him do anything, they hit him with something or headbutt him.
Yeah. It is a good thing that that kind of goes back to like the use of the colors and such like that. It's animated very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell it's the playful teasing,
Mm-hmm.
not the how dare you. Um so yeah.
So so shall we jump into the episodes?
Yeah.
So the first thing that struck me about 7, probably the only time we're going to talk about him, Watery.
Yeah.
It's actually a great captain.
Mm.
Like his teammate crying that, you know, he let everyone down and that they lost. He's like, no, it'll be okay. You know, we'll just do it in high school. Like really trying to like emotionally support the people around him.
Yeah.
And then like stoically waiting until like he was in a position where he could relieve those stresses and emotions himself without pushing that burden onto the people around him.
Yes.
I really appreciate that, especially when you compare that to later on in the episode. Where even Carrie's calling him Chick Magnet.
Yeah.
Which, like, I was thinking before, like, there's no way she couldn't know that he was a player.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that she does know to some degree.
Yeah. She knows.
I think it was in episode 8, but we'll just get out of the way. Like him just blatantly like scoping out other chicks when Carrie's around.
Yeah. She knows. I think with Watery, it's also a stark contrast to how Tsubaki handled it.
Mm.
I mean, both were very stoic about it. I think it's interesting that Watery didn't go to his friends.
That being said, like Tsubaki wasn't going to either until she was
Yeah.
blatantly invited to do so
Yeah.
by Kousei. Like literally, you can cry on my shoulder.
Yeah.
So, I think like those matching personality traits. If that piggyback ride didn't end up occurring, she would have waited until she got home to cry.
Yeah.
Much like Watery.
Yeah.
So, that being said, Tsubaki's game loss was far more to do with her than Watery's game loss was to do with him. And that's not a guy versus girl thing. She just like made a bunch of bad decisions because she was angry.
Yeah. No, in the end, I mean, she almost did it. She was
Doesn't
only off by like
even
an inch.
matter.
She was only off by like an inch.
Yeah, it's interesting, like the way that they portray the sports kids versus the arts kids,
Mm,
and like the kind of weird understanding between the two.
yeah.
Like it is definitely divergent, or no, I said discordant would probably be a better term, but there is like they're rooting for each other because they understand drive and they understand competition and putting yourself out there. So like those common threads between the two, even though they're completely different things.
Yeah, it's actually nice to see that. I mean, I think, the high school drama is like, oh no, there's no way that the sports kids and the theater geeks would ever understand each other. Such different worlds. And
They all go to the same boots and get pot from the same people.
I think this does really well at showing that how similar it can actually be.
Mm-hmm.
You're still going out there. The stage is different, but you're still putting it all on the line. Win or lose. If they shame you or not, you've given it your all.
Mm-hmm.
They show that very well, and obviously, I think they focus more on the art side of it, but it's something you don't think of, like just when you're watching everyone getting ready for the competition across the episodes, how clearly nervous everyone was, how they were trying to psych themselves up when their performance pieces and basically going and collapsing out of that sheer exhaustion
Mm-hmm.
from putting everything into it for 5 minutes on stage. I think it actually works really well matched up against the sports.
Well, and the through line as well with the way that. So this entire episode, I guess this series of episodes being about the motivations of each of the people and their journey to become pianists and be musicians. And this first one was dealing with rivalry.
Yeah.
And it didn't necessarily matter that Kousei didn't know who Aiza was.
Mm-hmm.
It just mattered that was the objective. That was his rival, and that was the person that he needed to beat.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like having, that rival teammate or that rival team.
Yeah. It's, I think they said it very well. It's like a rival can teach you more than any teacher ever can.
Exactly.
Because it gives you something to strive for that, just can't be inspired from instruction alone. But I think that's, again, why Kousei seems like he doesn't have passion when he plays. He is the human metronome, and everyone knows that. And everyone comments on it. He's perfect for competitions.
Well, I mean, yeah, like he's perfect for competitions, and But like the ability to freestyle, improvise, it's lacking.
Mhm.
Simply, I'm not super keen on the whole concept of like as the composer intended or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't think any of these composers were playing it in that exact way. They were putting their own flourishes in, right?
Yeah, this is I kind of mentioned this on the first episode, but this is an actual like thought.
Mm,
It's Battle of the Bands versus conservatory music.
yeah.
Battle of the Bands wants, yeah, no, you're just out to get those crowd pleasing moves out.
Mm,
Whereas a conservatory, it is, can you do it as
mm,
written? And both have their purposes, even in the real world. Because if you can do a piece as written, cool, it's easy for you to fit into an orchestra,
mm,
right? Can you throw your flourishes in? Awesome, jazz band or rock band.
yeah.
Uh, so they both have their places, but that does touch on like a theme that's been brought throughout. We've kind of touched around it multiple times as well. The idea of who or what are you playing for,
Yep.
and that passion versus precision, and how they interact. I think that's one thing they did very well with, from how I understand it, because I mean I don't know these pieces well enough. Um, uh, Takashi seemed to get that precision and be able to match the passion into it in
Mm-hmm.
his piece, uh, which is nice. And the fact that it drew Kousei in uh, almost makes me go, it's like, okay, now Kousei might be able to see that rival get that inspiration as well. So it's kind of nice to see.
Well, and especially when you compare 7 versus 8. So seven being about that rivalry. What was being provided by Isa was a very precise, award-winning piece,
Yeah.
like played piece, with passion as well, which is the thing that Kousei is missing.
Yes.
So, like, I would hope to see that inspire rivalry from Kousei towards him.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be slightly different than rivalry, just
Mm.
to clarify.
Yeah, because they're
Uh,
best buds now because they
yeah.
fought in the tournament arc, and
Yeah. um, for Isa, it's definitely rivalry. For Kousei, he's just bringing in more understanding into what it actually means to be
Mhm.
a musician, right? It's a similar thing that we're seeing that Kaori is giving him.
Yeah.
So inspiration instead of I have to be better than you. It's just like, oh, this is things I could do.
Well, like, how are you
Yeah.
gonna? It's all the ways that you would, all the things that you would need to treat someone who can precisely and exactly play the piano.
Yeah. What else did I have here? Yeah, it just goes. That's what I have written there. Just the idea of playing it as written, making it your own. All of that is there, and all throughout. I liked seeing how committed Kousei was.
Mm.
He's facing his fears, and he is giving it his all, which is character growth because he, obviously was fighting against it beforehand.
Well, here's some of the things, like how incredibly nervous he was, like almost falling apart,
Mhm.
until he could see the the passion and the skill of Igawa and Aiza.
Yeah.
And then it was almost as if he had forgotten that nervousness because he was
Yes.
being exposed to this. It was just like an interesting contrast.
Yeah. Well, it's that who do you play for? And the fact that they were playing for him and he recognized it.
Mm.
I mean, you see how they both reacted to that. Like, that is all they ever asked for. Right? And again, probably the first time they've ever been recognized by him. It's pretty powerful stuff.
And given, like, I could feel the emotion throughout 7, but of course, as it transitioned to 8, they like definitely cranked up that emotional knob to the colors that they were trying to portray.
Mm.
There's only one thing that I wish that they would have done is I would have liked some type of vocal recognition as to Igawa's piece
Mm.
From Kousei. Similar to how, like, I forget the exact term that he said for Aiza, that it was like, that it was amazing or it was wonderful or something along those lines.
Mm.
I would have liked some type of verbal acknowledgement.
Not that she gave him a chance.
Great scene. Well, this one really brought out the colors like you were talking about previously. So just the fickle yet complex yet deep feelings of this young woman regarding her musicianship and the person who originally inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even throughout to the end, like, the fact that they were saying that there's like passion and care, but there was also anger in the piece.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell even how she was having herself in her monologue.
Mm.
It's like, using this piece, I'm going to reject you.
Yeah.
And like, there was like, I don't want them to elaborate on it at all because it was so well constructed.
Mm.
But it just left me going like, who is this girl? And like, what is her state? Does she like this guy? Does she not like this guy? What is it?
So, how I read it is... So you see, we've got Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura.
Naruto! Sasuke!
Like,
I mean, now we're just reading shonen to shonen, so yeah.
Yeah. So we have the clear rivals,
Mm. And
then we have the one that is inspired to do this because of her love of a character.
Mm.
That's how I read it, and I think her episode shows this very much. I think the moment his hands touched the piano,
Yep.
she was enamored. So we start there. When his hands touch the piano, we get that little burst of colors, which again, big theme of the show. Colors is when you do have that love. We see her performance being described in colors specifically.
Mm.
And I think the idea of the shunning and rejecting isn't necessarily exactly as it sounds. I think it's that I think that could be almost like she felt rejected.
Mm.
And kind of a response to that. And again, going back to her playing, like when he wasn't around, she stopped caring.
Mm-hmm.
Went from a top performer to a mid performer, and that he's back. It's there. So I think there is some love there. Uh, Regardless of how that plays out, what type of love, she's definitely emotionally invested in him. Is how I see it. Thoughts?
I somewhat disagree.
All right.
I do like your take. But I think that anger would have been more directed at the absence.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that she was inspired to become a pianist who could inspire other people to want to play the piano, being her primary goal, and for her to follow suit and trail behind the person who originally was driving that passion, for them to just disappear would have felt like rejection, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of a modified version of your point.
Yeah.
So the fact that he disappeared, she would have felt rejected by that because her inspiration is now gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think her specific motivation was to share the stage with him. Like, I'm pretty sure that was her. And she said specifically. Again, I know this is something you and me have talked about personally. I don't think it's ever come up on the podcast before.
I don't think you can say that on the internet right now.
Anyway, you can't be that angry at something without caring for it.
Yeah.
So
I definitely know that, at least in regards to me, because of course I remember things regarding myself more accurately than things regarding other people. We've talked about this regarding like ex-partners of mine, etc.
Yeah.
In depth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we've had that conversation about my brother.
Yeah.
Right? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, as far as the episodes go in this series, this is as close to a perfect episode that they could have had. The way that they express the motivations, the emotions, they use the color, all within the themes and guidelines that they had already established.
Yes.
And boxed it up so well. Like, it's funny that the definitive Your Lion April episode so far has been episode 8, and it doesn't even really involve anyone except an orbiting character.
Yeah.
A new orbiting character.
Yeah. Well, it's built up so well, and like you said, it's again one of those things that we kind of look for, even though we don't necessarily talk about a lot. It's how consistent are you within the framework that you've set up in the show?
Yep.
And in this one here just hits every single beat, and it goes to something you were saying way back. It's like you didn't want it just to be about Kousei and Kaori.
Yeah.
So the fact again that they could do this with a new character and just drive it home. Again, they built it up with the episode before and just knocked it out of the park with this.
And it wasn't even an unnatural progression either, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not that they could have used colors or should have used colors in 7. 7 was its own unique thing. Like, using such an intense palette of colors on it would have actually taken away from that episode.
Yes. Yeah. Which is to very much say it doesn't mean it went colorless, because we get that coming up.
Yes. There was one line that I super loved out of 8.
Mm.
So after Igawa had seen Kousei play and expressed her motivations atop the jungle gym, when she was throwing away her sports stuff and her art stuff, the line that struck out to me was, "I abandoned all my other infinite possibilities and chose that one."
Mm.
I thought it was such a powerful statement.
It really is. That's what you do to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And
The very best? Like, no one
like
ever
no one ever
was?
was. Yeah. It is a shonen anime. um Again, that just goes to speak at how powerful that performance must have been, because I don't like to just inspire someone that much. And see her commit to it, and hear of her losing that commitment a bit too. Like,
Wait a minute. Was this the same performance that Kousei's mom watched?
so the performance that inspired her was like his first performance.
Okay.
Yeah, it was his very first performance on stage, because he was so nervous that he knocked everything over, and
It was adorable and charming.
yeah, it was adorable and charming. It was his mother testing him, is how they said it. They were there for the performance where he broke down. Like I don't know. They were there for all of these performances, obviously.
Yeah. No, I just like, my brain had a thing that like the horrid beauty of like, obviously this didn't happen, but the horrid beauty of such an inspiring performance to make this girl want to become a pianist that could inspire people to play the piano, also being the one that caused a public outbreak where his mom starts mercilessly beating him with a cane, and then he said he wished she'd die.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about that.
I think that's why they paced the episodes with that kind of feeling. But I think that was more for the juxtaposition,
Yeah.
not a chronological aspect. Because you got to remember, they shared the stage multiple times.
Yeah.
Like they specifically said that.
Oh no, you're right. I'm just like, the horrid
Yeah.
beauty of that circumstance would be astounding.
Yeah. Though, I mean, it's also hinted at that that probably did happen, but it wasn't a public one. So,
Oh yeah, they are straight up showing him with like bruises all over all the time.
yeah. She got rid of his cat. So sad.
Talking about Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cat. He's never gonna Chelsea again. Yeah, I said it.
Yeah, you did. I liked just kind of the last little bit for Gawa here. I don't know if got with this episode. I liked her confidence going in until like right before she went on stage, when there was literally no one else around. Then she let her nerves get to her a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a nice character moment. Again, very efficient in showing us what type of person she is.
There's a nice little inclusion. Definitely additive.
Yeah. Took a couple seconds. That's her character. There's other things that I can say about the episode, but that is involving future knowledge. So, there's some nice moments when you understand, with like when we get to it.
Like you can tell that like as he's powering up his like super pianist ability, his like one bang starts pointing straight up into the air.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. He has the most shonen hair.
It's because
he's gone Super Saiyan right off the get-go.
this is a shonen anime. But oh gee. So having 8 so lively and bright and full of color, to move on into 9, kind of have a midpoint and then have all that drained away.
Yeah.
It was not unwelcome. It was just a shocking from a visual standpoint.
Like the use of color.
Yeah, or the lack of.
Yeah. It's there's something about the pacing of this. It's like you're just the show in general. There is a roller coaster here, and you are all along for the ride. And get to go up the hill and then go down the hill and get those moments of excitement, but also those moments of, oh my god, what happened to this kid?
Well, I mean, like, you can half tell what's going on simply just by looking at Kaori's eyes, because they were that steely gray blue throughout like all 3 of these episodes.
Yeah.
Of course, she was also hopped up on a pile of medication.
Yeah. Just in case you didn't catch on, she's a little sick.
Just a little, though.
Yeah, just a little.
What are you talking about? She's totally sick. She's grinding rails in her free time. Doing backflips for the fun of it.
She probably is.
I heard she base jumps.
Yeah, we definitely had that. I think I noticed there was some of the. I can't remember if it was her, if it was with. Actually, it might have been with Igawa. Now that I think about it, they did that color bit where it's like everything but her went to that black, that almost monochrome, and like the only bit of color was a red dress. I guess it just shows that lone. Actually, that was probably something. Was that in this episode, or was that? I can't remember if that was the beginning of episode 9 or the end of episode 8.
Doesn't matter explicitly.
Yeah, but like showing that, I think it was nice to see someone else give some color to Kousei's doing. That's the bit that I took from that. But yeah, just watching the color fade, and like the only bits of color we're seeing are in stark contrast to the rest of the series is like these wounds that Kousei's taking, right? Like the stark bleeding and the bruising. It was powerful.
These wounds? They will not heal. Here's how I fall. Confusing what is real. Crawling in my skin.
what I find amusing is I'm the singer, and I'm pretty sure we have you singing more on these podcasts than I have.
Hava, Nagila Hava, Nagila Hava, Nagila Venisma. Havana running, Havana running, Havana running, Venisma.
You good?
Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry, I completely sidetracked myself and I have no idea what we're talking about.
We were talking about most of the show so far. We've been seeing the color around like the passion and such coming in, whereas here we're seeing the color around literally what took his passion away, like the bleeding from the cat, the bruising. Like we're very much had a lot of color. Though again, everything else being monochrome, it's very much in a stark contrast to the scene I was saying there with Igawa. But I guess just as I guess it still follows the rules though, because it's still about the emotion. It's just not the emotion that we've been set up for with the rest of the series so far.
Well, and the contrast of like a colorless room with a girl in a red dress shining through versus a colorless lobby with the red drops of blood as they fall. Two completely different emotions shown through very similar means.
Yeah. And some of the shows just doing very well. I wish I could say that I was shocked that people didn't jump in when his mom was beating him like that. Because unfortunately, that is a lot of people don't step in.
Well, especially when it's a lady freaking on oxygen in a wheelchair.
Yeah. And I get the impression this is the first time something publicly happened. Actually, I'm pretty sure they said it's like, oh, that's why he's always wearing long sleeves.
Yeah, like it's the thing that everybody knows, but nobody talks about.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to show that where Kousei's mental break actually comes from. Because up until this episode, we were led to believe that it was just his mom dying and that just cut off his passion, tied to the rest of the trauma and everything. But we actually see in this episode that wasn't exactly the case.
No, now it seems like it's directly related to some misplaced form of self-punishment.
Yes.
It's like a self-haunting. And it's really interesting. Like, it makes so much sense why they've always depicted his mother as being like as almost out of a comic, just like a black outline and pale white. And you go, okay, like she's sickly or she's moved on, she's passed on. You kind of make that assumption, like it's a ghostly thing. But when you start placing it on the emotional scale of that they've set forward in this series, all of a sudden you realize, no, it's very pointed as to why there's no color to it.
Yeah. There's no color. We actually like why we don't see her face. Like he literally can't remember her face. And I think, like I said, it's there's a guilt or punishment or something that's blocking him because he was playing and then just had that flash of, oh, this is where my mom should be. And that's when it hit him. Like, sounds like it was like a week or at least a week or so in between. And like, I can understand how that hits. But again, he's, I don't know, too young and we know his dad's not around. It's not that he's He's just always away on business. So we don't know, like, what support did he have?
My father's always away on business, and he's always surrounded by women. Is this a harem anime?
Tsubaki doesn't. No.
Thank you.
Watery would be the main character if it was a harem anime. But Tsubaki can't be there for him emotionally, like he's going to need at this point.
But it's quite clear that he blames himself to some degree for the passing of his mother. And he's still young enough to not have the logic to know that it wasn't his words that killed her. Like, she was quite obviously on a health decline during the entire time.
Yeah. And
it's really messed up that his father wasn't there to be some sort of support during that time. Mm-hmm. It seems like it was a toxic home life altogether. Like, I don't envy this kid at all.
Yeah.
Maybe when everything was vibrant, full of color before his mom fell sick and she was depicted with color and care, like, that would be something to be envious of. But in the end, kid's mom dies. He blames himself for it, and then doesn't get the emotional support from his absentee father.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like, there's no wonder he's got all these, like, almost these forms of, like, self-abuse when it comes to, like, preventing himself to play.
Yeah. No, the mental blocks make sense. I read the punishment not as the not being able to play good enough to save his mom. I think he's punishing himself for the last words that he said to her.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's, I can't remember where exactly this was. It's interesting to see that, this is probably just throughout, but I think Kaori, the almost manic pixie dream girl type character that she is, I like the fact that she is what grounds him. She's actually grounding Kousei.
The girl who's like on perpetual uppers is being grounding towards somebody. Yeah, it's nice.
And not normally how you see that type of character being portrayed. It's
why it was so odd that when she was face down on her arms, because, otherwise your arms don't have anything to do, they feel useless. It was weird for her to not seem attentive and active, be worried in such a manner.
Yeah.
Before Kousei came on.
Yeah. Oh, those mental blocks. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about Igawa as well. This is part of this here. The look of concern that kind of crossed her face when they could tell that he was starting to lose it.
Well, especially because, like, when he starts playing, it was almost for Igawa and Aiza, it was like almost like they were coming home. This is what they were expecting, even though it was a simple piece. It was precise, it was accurate, it was Kousei.
Yeah.
And then when he starts losing it, like, the concern for it and just the reaction when Igawa's music teacher, says like it's been a rumor now, but apparently he can't even hear the notes.
Yeah.
Just like, and her reaction to that kind of makes you go like, oh,
Yeah. I think overall these 3 episodes shows that game recognizes game, and they can all see that how they succeed and how they fail. And I don't know, like visually, we knew that he was starting to fall apart, but I didn't quite hear it in the music immediately. They were reacting to it almost like before he fell apart. It's like they just knew it was happening.
mm-hmm.
Which probably is something to do with that human metronome aspect they talk about. So being off a beat or two here or there. Casual listener isn't going to know, but they definitely did.
Well, I mean, for his perception, or from their position, at his known ability, him being off by a fraction of a beat, or even like not pressing the key down all the way, or to the point that he should have.
Yeah.
They would have caught that and been like, that's not Kousei.
Yeah.
Because he was known for everything being exactly precise.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the episode where he's about to fall at the end of it, and then all the people who he piano no jutsu'd come together and cheer him on, and then he gets back up, and then he crushes out a magnificent piano piece. Saves the world.
It's true. He will, in fact, save the world with his piano no jutsu.
I still, like, I get what they're trying to show with, like, the feeling of being underwater and not being able to hear it, and, like, arms feeling heavy and all that. I just don't like how they're expressing it. Like I mentioned this last recording.
Yeah.
I'm still having, like, a bit of a problem with how they're expressing that in the show.
Yeah.
I don't really have any suggestions to improve it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's... Because, again, like we discussed, this was a manga first.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a manga standpoint, I completely understand doing it that way.
Yep.
I think the only thing I can really think of why they haven't really changed up much is, well, I mean, a lot of anime tend to try to be very faithful to the manga until they run out of manga, and then they ruin everything. So they probably didn't want to change that much there. Also, at the same time, when they're playing at this level, like, they can give us the other people's reactions to it. But I mean, for the most part, Kousei himself was surrounded by laymen when it comes to music. So we can see Igawa and Aiza's reaction. And that tells us that something's off without us necessarily being able to hear it. And even when we had the scene with Kaori, when he was accompanying her, they basically had to tell you that he was basically competing with her in that power, because otherwise, like, no, this is like dueling pianos.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why they stuck with that visual. And as I said, I can't really think of another way to do it other than constantly having us being told.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's just, yeah, they're the manner of expression I'm not super keen on, but I can't think of a better way. So what do I do?
Yeah.
And not like they could change it now anyways.
That's true.
I think one last thing I had for this episode, and this goes back to Kousei and his mom. One quote that I had written down, he said, I'm sure it's all my fault.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, no, 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 baby Kousei, it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault, little baby Kousei.
It's not your fault. You'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, it's been long enough that since I've seen this, that a lot of the stuff is kind of hitting me fresh again.
I love it.
I've got-
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. Like, I've definitely got enough knowledge that, as I said before, there's been things I've picked up across these 9 episodes now that I know you haven't, but I also wouldn't expect you to necessarily pick up yet.
Hmm. I'll leave that for the flashback episode.
Yeah. There's definitely some good through lines, good ties that I think will pay off if you remember them.
I might.
You might. I know there's been a couple things very specifically repeated throughout the episodes, and some visual things here or there as well.
Was there anything else for episode 9 or the 3 episodes?
No, we actually recorded a lot longer than I thought we were going to. But there's again, the efficiency of what you can do with the medium really shows through this here. These were 3 episodes that on their surface were very simple, but there was so much conveyed through using every piece of the medium, through the color, through the music, through flashback and story, and just, again, little things like you can tell something's up with Kaori because her eye color is that slightly difference.
Well, it's one of those things like no scene wasted. Like even when Watery is being a dog, Tsubaki and Kaori are actually talking about useful things.
Yeah. And that's important pacings there. And again, to just have like such a stunning episode be about a character that is literally just introduced and nailing it. That can't be easy to do.
Agreed.